So just earlier today, we heard the news that Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Kelvin Gastelum is going to be added to the Mexican Independence Day card, which is taking place in September, the 16th of September in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's going to be a fun card, and this is going to be a fun fight. I like it, and I actually do believe that Kelvin Gastelum would be able to put up a pretty good test against Shavkat Rakhmonov, but I do think Shavkat Rakhmonov can win this fight. I think it's a good matchup for Shavkat Rakhmonov. However, I would be very impressed if Shavkat was able to become the very first person to knock out Kelvin Gastelum, because that's one thing about Kelvin Gastelum. He's a tough dude, man. This guy doesn't really get finished by anybody. He got finished by Chris Weidman by submission and Jack Hermansson by submission, but apart from that, this guy has been the distance with some very dangerous guys, like Israel Adesanya wasn't able to get him out of there. Jacare Souza couldn't get him out of there. You know, Jared Cannonier put this man in a world of trouble, and he couldn't get him out of there. He is coming off that close fight against Chris Curtis, which isn't really the best look when you're going down to 170 pounds, but that's also another thing I need to bring up. Finally, Kelvin Gastelum's putting the buffet down. Finally, dude. I mean, we've been saying this for years. Kelvin Gastelum is a lot better off at 170 pounds than he is at 185 pounds. However, this is a difficult matchup for him, man. You know, Shavkat Rakhmonov is a guy which I'm assuming a lot of people probably aren't too keen on fighting at 170 pounds, but Kelvin Gastelum, he ain't scared of nobody, man. He's going down a weight class to fight Shavkat. A lot of respect for Gastelum taking this matchup. He's a tough guy. I think that he really could maybe take Shavkat Rakhmonov the distance because he's a tough guy. And Jeff Neal almost took Shavkat Rakhmonov the distance. You know, he finished him. He finished Jeff Neal in the very final minutes of the third round, and this is a 3-round fight. We've seen Gastelum get hurt by guys like Jared Cannonier, but he didn't get put out of there, you know what I mean? He didn't put out there on the feet. I'll be very interested to see what happens in this matchup, but I do believe that Shavkat Rakhmonov will be more technical on the feet. I think he's going to be a little bit more aggressive than Kelvin Gastelum as well, and I do believe that Shavkat Rakhmonov can finish Kelvin Gastelum by submission. If he gets a KO, oh my goodness, man, I'm going to be hyped for Shavkat, but it's just because Gastelum's never been KO'd before. But I'm very, very happy that Gastelum has finally put the buffet down. He's finally going down to 170 pounds. We've all kind of unanimously thought that he's better off at 170 because he's not the biggest guy in the world. He stands at 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. He did do okay at 185 pounds. Like, he did have a pretty good run at one point. You know, he did fight Chris Weidman, Bisping, Jacare Souza, had that close fight with Israel Adesanya, which was a war, one of the better fights we've seen in recent UFC history. Went to a close fight with Till. And then, like, he's fought good guys, like Robert Whittaker, Jared Cannonier, and both of these fights he took on short notice. That is something that tells you Gastelum's not scared of nobody, man. Gastelum's willing to fight anybody. And it is also worth noting as well that this is a pretty big week for the Rakhmonov family because Shavkat's sister has been announced to be on Dana White's Contender Series. If you guys are a big fan of Shavkat Rakhmonov, he has a sister who is going to be on the Contender Series this year. I thought that might just be something that I will throw in there. Just maybe you could follow her, keep your eye out on her, and see if she makes it into the UFC of the Contender Series. But now let's get back into the matchup. When it comes down to it, I think Shavkat Rakhmonov is a lot more technical on the feet than Kelvin Gastelum. Like, Gastelum's a tough guy. He comes forward. He's a decent boxer. But Shavkat Rakhmonov on the feet's aggressive. He throws a lot of kicks. You know, he's got a very good kickboxing sort of style. He can wrestle, he can grapple. And I think that's probably where he would actually find the most success against Kelvin Gastelum. You know, Kelvin Gastelum does have good wrestling. That's kind of really what got him to the dance in the first place, which was a very long time ago now when he was fighting on The Ultimate Fighter. Way back when, but it was the wrestling that did get him by. And now all of a sudden he has kind of developed a little bit more of a boxing sort of style. You know, there wasn't really a lot of wrestling in that Chris Curtis fight. They kind of struck for most of it. But I think it's Shavkat. I think Shavkat's the guy that has the options. I think Shavkat is the guy that can pick Kelvin Gastelum away apart from range with the kicks. You know, he throws spinning kicks. He throws everything, you know what I mean? He's a very fun fighter. Very aggressive, lots of kicks, and he can fight from range. He's got the reach advantage, he's got the height advantage, despite Gastelum being the former middleweight. I like Gastelum going down to 170. I don't like the matchup for him. I am kind of all over Shavkat in this fight, but I think it's still a tough matchup, you know. I think there's probably going to be a lot of people out there saying that, you know, Kelvin Gastelum shouldn't have taken this, all this and that, all this sort of thing. Maybe it is a bad matchup for Gastelum, but Gastelum isn't scared of nobody, and I do actually think that it's going to be a fun fight. I think Rakhmonov wins by like a 3rd round submission. However, I think Gastelum's a tough guy. I think maybe Gastelum could be the very first person to take Shavkat Rakhmonov to the cards. because nobody's done that before. 17-0 with 17 finishes. Is that not absolutely ridiculous? It really is. I think that Shavkat is definitely the real deal. Potentially a future champion. A lot of people are labeling him as a future champion right now. I do believe he's a future champion, but there's still a lot of tough matchups at the top of 170. I think this actually potentially could be one of them, but I do think Shavkat gets past this fight with flying colours. I think he finishes Gastelum, becomes one of the very, very few people to finish Kelvin Gastelum, and I think Shavkat Rakhmonov wins by submission in the second or the third round. Or I would not be too surprised if it does go to the cards, because Gastelum's a tough guy to get out of there. But I think if it does go to the cards, it's just going to be a bit of a showcase for Shavkat, out-techniquing Gastelum, picking him apart from range, on the feet, and using his wrestling and his grappling to kind of his advantage if he really needs to. However, let's talk about the card. It's a good card. Chris Curtis is on the card, so that could be awkward with Curtis and Gastelum. But Dana White said in the announcement that he's really going to try and stack this card. So I've got my eyes out on this card, and I think you should keep your eyes out on this card as well, because he said he really wants to stack this card and make it a really big deal. So I'm hoping it's going to be a really big deal, and I'm hoping that it's going to be super stacked as well. So I'm going to keep my eyes out for this card. I'm going to see how stacked it's about to be. It's already looking pretty good. Like, Lupita Godinez is on the card. Hernandez versus Curtis is on the card. You know, one of those fighters is a ranked middleweight. You got rankings in the co-main events with Shavkat and Kelvin Gastelum, and then a title fight in the main. I can't wait to see what else they put on this card. I'm sure they're going to find some fantastic Mexican fighters to sign maybe for this card, and also they've already got some great Mexican fighters already that they can put on the card as well. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and with that all being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching.